Hello everyone, I am Sophia Ring, SP Saturn the 7th, and you are watching Anime Egotists. Enjoy!
And welcome back to the Anime Egotists, where if we were in the Pokemon anime, we'd still be using items and stuff like that.
Of course, I mean, it's not cheating if you can use them.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, there are no rules against it, but who cares? Anyways, my name's Alex, and the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Kazuki Takahashi seems pretty awesome to me.
Yep, he'll be missed very much. And I'm Richard.
That is correct. And a lot of times in anime, it's a pretty big cliche, but there are a lot of backstories in anime.
Yeah, they can be very dark, it seems like, is the consistency since the early 2000s of the heroes gotta have a big, bad backstory where they lost like half their family or all their family, or friends betrayed them or something, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And we'll kind of go through the story of why these are great.
That's right. These are some of our favorite backstories in anime. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these are dark because, you know, it's anime. I thought about adding a couple of funny backstories, but they're just so few and far between that they're kind of hard to find. But just the backstories we felt like did a really good job of showcasing certain characters.
Exactly. And a few of mine are actually like the entire first episode is the backstory. So, but I'm kind of interested to see which ones you have on your list.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Do you want to go first this time?
No, I went first last time, buddy.
Oh, okay. Then I guess I'm going first. I'll start with the one that I think you might have put it on your list, so I'm kind of interested to see what you think. And that's Kakashi's backstory.
Nope.
Oh, okay. So his backstory is extremely tragic. I watched a video recently where his backstory is literally described as he's Sasuke that lost hope but found his way again much faster.
Yeah.
And so pretty much his mother was lost when he was really, really little. His father becomes disgraced when he sacrifices a mission to save his allies, and this causes several of their shinobi to die. He ends up eventually not being able to live with himself and commits suicide, leaving Kakashi all alone. Kakashi then is pretty much a prodigy, but is kind of alone for the next part. He graduates early from the academy. He's then joins with Obito and Rin. Loses Obito during one of the wars when he's crushed. Pretty much kills Rin himself. Joins the Anbu where he's starts getting manipulated by Danzo. Ends up eventually kind of working for Minato again. Watches Minato die and is told he can't go help because he's too young. Then ends up watching Minato die. Gets manipulated more by Danzo, and eventually it's all thanks to those that never gave up on him. Guy, Asuma, and Kurenai kind of bring him back. It's mostly Guy. But just all this tragedy. And yes, he does lose hope, but he's smart enough, kind of where Sasuke, I guess, is not smart enough to figure out that he's being manipulated. He figures out that he is and learns, and it's revealed that he has actually a really nice heart. He really does respect and want to be friends with these people, but he was going through a hard time through pretty much his entire young life.
Yeah, not to mention he uses those to like better teach his team, to better teach his squad mates, because at first we kind of see Kakashi's like, man, this guy seems kind of cool, but what was he like beforehand? And then we see it and we're like, oh god, are you okay? Do you need a hug?
Exactly. I mean, it's just perfect. Him and Guy's friendship. It's I don't know how else to describe it. It's Guy is so perfect for Kakashi because he gives him he allows him to forget his pain and still have fun with life, pretty much.
Yeah, especially when they're some of their fights.
God, I love their when they're about to do rock paper scissors and they just they wind up and they're it's like it's so perfect.
Yeah, but the brilliant thing about Kakashi's backstory isn't even just the backstory itself, it's just how it shapes him and how
Mhm.
basically consistent in probably making him the most popular character in the whole franchise. But I didn't put any Naruto characters on my list. I felt like we got a lot of it out of the way in the last video.
Yeah, but since we didn't talk about Kakashi, it felt like it was needed in this video. But I don't know, everything feels natural. Everything that seems to go wrong goes wrong for him. There are times where it's obvious that he's suffering and he is on the verge of turning to the dark side, working for Danzo, possibly working for Orochimaru or something. It's all these things that could go wrong have gone wrong, and yet somehow he manages to get himself on the right path, which is actually a very inspiring thing.
Yeah, Kakashi went through some stuff, but I still love him. He's great.
Mhm.
All right, so my first character with the backstory,
Go right ahead.
Chi from Chobits.
Okay.
Okay, she on first glance just kind of seems like a persicom who lost their memory, but it actually turns out that basically the person who created her ended up making her because they all right to backtrack a little bit. The person who created her, Ichiro, also created a persicom named Freya, and Freya was super lonely and sad for a good majority of the time. So he created Chi in order to think, okay, so she'll have a sister so they can get along better. But ultimately, through basically Freya gets more and more sick, she can't completely take care of herself, and their creator ends up basically getting heartbroken over all of it, and he gets sick over it. They both basically end up dying. But Freya's memories basically get put into Chi, so she has kind of a lot to deal with. But at the same time, I guess for me personally, it always kind of felt like it almost seemed like it would have been better if she never learned the secret of, oh, you have your sister's memories inside you, because as with all that information overload and just how sad the series can be at times, it almost kind of it almost kind of makes her ignorance at the beginning in kind of, let's just say, a little bit easier to deal with. But the mother, her mom, or basically Ichiro's wife, is also her current landlord for her caretaker. I guess caretaker at this point, like Hideki. And honestly, with everything she goes through, like she doesn't, like I said at the beginning of the series, she doesn't know a whole lot. She doesn't exactly understand human interaction and everything. But with her memories being more and more unlocked and just all the sad stuff she could be going through, she seems like a very happy person throughout the series. And overall, when her memories do unlock and everything, it's not some sad, scary moment, but it's super cathartic. If she's happy, she falls in love, she learns all this important stuff through everything she's been through, and it feels natural. It's not one of those things where it feels like they threw it in at the last minute with how ridiculous it sounds at some points. It feels natural. The only part that feels kind of unnatural is when their mother, Hibia, she said, "Oh, I found these books to put in the bookstore, and when she reads them, her memories will be unlocked." And I think, what if someone else picked up those books?
Uh, God, that is a good question. I mean, I haven't seen this show, but yeah, I mean, just you said it was a bookstore, right? Not
Yeah,
a library.
they just walk into a bookstore and she's like, "Oh, I'll take this book." Memories.
Oh, great. So those memories are now lost probably forever unless they return the book after they finish reading it or something.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess it's just one of those. I guess it's just one of those things where people are like, because it's basically a picture book, so they're like, I have college stuff I need to be studying more. I can't focus on picture books. But overall, I just feel like she's happiness, like her immaturity at times and her kind of lack of knowledge at some point kind of really helped in some regards to just her learning the truth about herself and just how cheerful she stayed throughout it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a kind of interesting backstory with having her sister's memories kind of locked away, and it's just, yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting. I don't, as I said, I haven't seen the show, so I don't know
Yeah.
enough about it.
I thought about doing the baker's backstory, but there's an aspect of the story that his backstory is excellent, with the exception of one thing, and it's a pretty major thing. I'm like, that doesn't sit well with me. But overall, she's cool.
Yep, it sounds, as I said, it sounds interesting. All right, so my next one.
Go for it.
All right, so I have Zeref Dragneel from Fairy Tail. Um, I've kind of spoiled it already by using his last name, but about the second to last major arc of the series, it's revealed that Zeref is Natsu, the main character's brother. They lived a couple thousand years ago when, in a more ancient civilization, Zeref was a prodigy of magic, learning how to do all these different spells, that he was allowed to pretty much study what he wanted. But he started studying like the forbidden magics, the bringing people back from the dead, creating demons. Well, this angered the gods or cursed them, where it made him immortal, but the more he loves and respects life, he releases this dark aura that literally kills everything around him. And throughout the series, the few times we've seen Zeref before, he's in this kind of weird manic state where some of the time he's really like, he really loves all life, and he'll be surrounded by nature. Some like a deer or a bird will fly up, he'll feel the love and respect for it, and then the pulse will go out and he'll kill everything around him. In the end, during the second to last arc, he's some of his creations, called the Books of Zeref, which are just his demons, have pretty much caused him to lose all respect for life. And so he's now kind of enters his final villainous stage. He's like, I'm just going to rewrite this world so that nothing can die when I do it.
And you said they're called the Books of Zeref?
The demons were the Books of Zeref, but they literally were books at one point, supposedly.
Were these books at all in the same bookstore that she had to go to?
Possibly.
Go figure.
I think all books in anime are stored in the same bookstore, so.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
But his whole plan was, the reason he started studying the dark magics was because his parents and his little brother, Natsu, were killed when he was young, so he started studying to try to be able to resurrect them. He actually successfully creates what he calls ethereal Natsu Dragneel, which is END, which is one of the books of Zeref. So he literally turns his brother into a demon in order to resurrect him. And it kind of sets in motion all of the story that you go through. He's just, it's interesting because you get bits and pieces of his backstory throughout. And then when you finally get to that final arc, they kind of start piecing everything together, where you learn everything. You learn his history with Mavis, the founding member of Fairy Tail, the main guild, where they actually had a kid together. And that's a whole nother bit, but it's not as important. But the main focus, though, is between him and Natsu, which leads to the final battle, because part of it also is that Natsu is the only one who he's made strong enough to actually kill him. And in the end, Natsu is literally the only one who's able to defeat Zeref and his thousands of years of suffering of being pretty much unable to die and not being able to be surrounded by anything he actually loves or cares about.
And I guess I have to co-sign. I don't know. His character does sound interesting in a lot of regards, and I feel like I want to root for him in the sense of I want him to be better, and not necessarily I just want you gone because you're the villain. But yeah, that's the most I can say about it, though.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there've been arcs that are bad in Fairy Tail, but I like his overarching story that you learn throughout the series, so it's kind of an interesting mix.
Yeah, and I can co-sign.
All right, your next one.
Geostellar from Mega Man Star Force.
Okay.
Yeah, do you remember? Okay, just to clear it up for any Mega Man fans, do you remember anything about Land's childhood or Land's story from the original Mega Man Network anime?
Unfortunately, there's not much told about his story in the anime. I know his story from the games a lot more because it's actually a lot darker than the kids show.
Yeah, but Geo's a bit different. Some of the first stuff from the original anime is just Land, go to school, all right, have fun, and then just everything starts from there.
Mhm.
Geo's story is really different. He lives with his mom and his dad works a lot when it comes to space and technology and other sorts of stuff. But his dad ends up getting lost in space, and his dad's basically his hero. So when the game and when the anime, because it had an anime too, when that all starts, Geo's really is thoroughly depressed. He's a shut-in. He stays in and does all of his schoolwork at home. He barely talks to his mom in the games. In the anime, it seems like they have a very loving relationship, and I actually think that's something the anime did better. But he's just very lonely to the point of when the class president Luna shows up at his house and says, "Hey, you need to come to school because we need perfect attendance because I'm the class president." I don't know. They don't do a good job at that part, but he openly says, "No, I'm not going to school." Well, and he basically secludes himself from everybody. Now, of course, later down the line, he becomes Mega Man. He starts becoming friends with people and opening up, but it's not one of those, at the end of the series, he's good to go, or at the end of the first game, he's good to go. No, it takes a very long time. And it's not necessarily that he's angry at the world, he's just sad. And sometimes I feel like when anime does stuff like that, they just make the character hateful and angry at the world, where it's a really good look at how depressed people kind of live. Like I said, it's not done too quickly. It feels believable, and he's a likable enough character that you really want him to get out of this funk, which he eventually does. But I just think that Geo was done expertly well, and he's one of the better main characters I've seen in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I played more of the Mega Man NT Warrior and Battle Network series than I did Star Force, but yeah, that is something I've noticed with a lot of anime. When something goes wrong, a character gets depressed for like an episode, and then someone or something cheers them up, and I got to get back up on the horse. It's like, having gone through some stuff myself, it's not always that easy to turn around and be happy-go-lucky again.
It's not for me either. Not to mention, I feel like she's not necessarily a character on this list, but his friend Luna, who I brought up, I feel like she does like the most realistic job of kind of getting him back to normal, because he kind of thinks to himself, we're not exactly friends, but she's one of the few people who wants me to be in school, who wants me to get better. It might be for her own selfish purposes, and that kind of makes it more realistic, but I want to save her. I'm going to protect her. It makes their dynamic feel that much more interesting. And she's a tsundere, and I'm saying all this nice stuff about her. So something's wrong, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she's done right by having the selfish characteristics of a tsundere and embarrassed about every little thing that the main character does, but still you can more see the kindness than others. It sounds like a bit more for them.
Yeah. Fun fact: in the anime, the English version of the anime has a lot of the cast from Zatch Bell. Yeah,
I may
you,
have
you,
to give
you
it
do enough listening and you start to be like, wait, that's Key. Oh, fun fact, his voice actor is Kyo.
Hmm. Now, if only I could get the rest of NT Warrior, all like 4 extra seasons that never got made in the US.
Well, they're re-releasing the game, like all 20-something games, so maybe you can go for that.
Yes, I do plan to get them.
Yeah, and yes, I'm using Geo Stellar. I'm using his English name. Get over it, nerds. I could have used any name that I've given him, but I went with Geo Stellar because I felt like that was the better compromise. But Geo, he's cool. Star Force, please come back.
I mean, that'll probably be next with Mega Man and Battle Network getting its re-release, and
Yeah,
it came
but the difference is Battle Network at least finished. Ish. The fourth Star Force game got canceled, but I want to believe, I want to have faith in you for once in my life.
I mean, it could be released altogether if the 20th anniversary, whenever that is. I assume it's a few years down the line still.
Something like that, yeah.
All right, so my next one.
Go for it.
So this one, I think you'll be able to talk about. It's one of, if not the most famous backstories in anime, at least in the last 20 years. And that's Nico Robbins' backstory.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So where to start this? So she's raised on this island with scientists that are it's the last people pretty much on Earth who can study the poneglyphs, which are these giant stone tablets with ancient writings on it. And it's the only way of knowing what happened during what they called the blank century, which is the time period where the current world government rose to power and these ancient civilizations pretty much fell. But there's information on 3 super weapons hidden on them. And there are 4 of them that are called the road poneglyphs, which lead to the final island Laugh-Tale. She studied with these scientists and is they are pretty much discovered that they're doing this study, which is illegal under the world government. And the government shows up and runs what they call a buster call, which pretty much summons every admiral and vice admiral in a certain area to come and destroy the island and its survivors. There's no survivors.
Yeah.
The way they find out is a giant who was a member of the Marines discovers that that this is going to happen and shows up and pretty much tells Nico Robin that they're going to destroy her island, and she's the only survivor. They kind of, because even the Navy fakes trying to save the people and then blows up the ships that they put the people of the island on. So she's watching all of her friends and family pretty much get killed for studying this. She escapes thanks to, I always forget his name, the ice-wielding admiral.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
It's Kizaru or something, I think, along those lines, but I could be wrong. Pretty much out of the goodness of his heart and the fact that he has his own plans, he lets her escape. And the rest of her childhood is going from house to house where she's taken care of at first by nice people, only for them to learn that, oh, she's wanted by the world government with a 30 million bounty, something along those lines. And they try to turn her into the government or make her a slave pretty much to them. And it's her running away constantly. She learns to not accept people. She still wants to study the poneglyphs, so she's kind of travels around the world at this point, trying to discover them all, and eventually comes and works for Crocodile, the second major antagonist of the series. And pretty much that's kind of it. They're trying to discover, I think it's Pluton is the world weapon that they're just trying to discover. And at the end of the Alabasta arc, she joins the Straw Hats and we get to the main story.
Yeah, but I think it especially helps that she directly asked Luffy Luffy doesn't have malice in his heart. He'll generally be able to be like, yeah, he's a nice guy. So it makes sense that I can't talk. That he's the one who's like, yeah, sure, join our crew. Ooh, without even hesitation, she's like, I want to join your crew, Luffy. And everyone's like, you should think about this, Luffy. And Luffy's like, yeah, okay. Hey, everybody's freaking out except Sanji, who's like, thank you. But I don't know. It works especially for her that she was able to find these people. And like I said, her thing with Luffy, it made perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, of the arcs that I've seen of One Piece, again, I'm watching the English dub, so I'm currently on the Whole Cake Island arc because they finally started dubbing that. This Water 7 into Annie's lobby, which is where the majority of you learn her backstory at that point, is probably my favorite arc of all of them that I've seen. I liked that or Paramount War. The two are my two favorite back-to-back arcs.
I still part of me really wants to say where the Going Merry arc, because that was yeah.
Well, this is like them, in my opinion, this is the most emotional arc I have, because while the Ace arc throughout the story is emotional because you feel it for Luffy, I have a bigger connection with Robin because she's been around a bit more than Ace has in the story, and
I was about to say, well, Going Merry had been around longer than Robin at that point.
Well, that's it. That's included in the Annie's Lobby arc. That's the Water 7 and Annie's Lobby arcs are literally the end of Going Merry.
Yeah. All I know is I'm still watching the 4Kids dub. So, and for some reason that's not updating very fast.
Yeah, they've been stuck on what, the Alabasta arc.
Something like that. Yeah. Fun fact: when they switched over to Funimation doing the One Piece dub, and they were showing the opening theme, they spoiled Robin joining.
Mm-hmm.
I was not happy. I was like, who is this? And did I miss an episode? Who is this person?
No, they updated the thing, and because that was back when they were still doing English openings, because the first the first 6 openings all got English dub versions or something like that. So,
and people say Black Clover spoils the anime.
I think the difference is that One Piece had already been around for 20 years when they started dubbing it on Funimation. When
I don't know about that. I don't give them credit for that. But yeah, overall, Robin's cool. Her story flipping heartbreaking, but I'm at least, like I said, it makes sense to some extent how it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I could have filled this list with One Piece characters because some of them have some really sad backstories and really not even sad, just sometimes really awesome backstories. I liked a lot of them. I just didn't feel like making this whole list One Piece characters.
Yeah, I can understand that.
All right, your next one.
All right, Gilbert Mclean from God Eater. Okay, Gilbert, when we first meet Gilbert, he's very serious. He's kind of, I'm not going to say he's not friendly, but at the same time, he does have a habit of getting into fights with other people. But we also learned that when he transferred to Blood to be basically part of the main characters group, that he and his friend Haruomi, that the two of them were best friends who basically fought origami side by side. And his friend Haru, who ended up, I'm just calling him Haru for short because it's so much easier to pronounce. His best friend Haru had his fiance Kate, and all three of them were really good at fighting together. But Gilbert and Kate ended up getting separated, and Kate ended up getting bitten by one of the origami. And sometimes when you get bitten by an origami, there's a good to fair chance you could end up getting turned into one. But Gilbert and Kate fought it off, and Kate told Gilbert, I'm going to turn into an origami. I'm going to hurt people. I won't be able to control myself. I'll be hurting people. I'll be ruining innocent lives. You need to kill me. Gilbert, of course, hesitated. He didn't want to do it. But of course, he finally does it in the end. He finally kills her. And then he has to explain to his best friend why he had to kill his fiance. It kind of makes sense why he doesn't get close to people anymore. But of course, Hero, Romeo, Shield, and everybody else, they end up finding a way to break him out of it and get out of his shell. Well, but I don't know. It was just a very heartbreaking story to hear, and just seeing they did a good job of waiting because we didn't learn his story right away. We saw how he acted and we got used to him, and then we saw all the trauma he went through. It was a good way of building it. And at the end of when they finally get revenge on the origami who did it, he's still Gil. Like, he's still standoffish, but he's still somebody who would do anything, you could tell, to protect his friends.
Yeah, it sounds like a really interesting backstory because it's something very rare when someone, even for anime, where someone has to kill a loved one for a legitimate reason. A lot of times when you end up having the backstory be that they killed their lover, their parent, or a sibling or something, it's because they were controlled and now they want revenge on the person. So for them to have to make the choice that the love of my life is going to turn into a monster and there's nothing I can do to save them except for kill them now so that they don't have to go through that. It's interesting. I'm kind of wondering, like, if more anime should do that, where it's an actual sacrifice versus leading to a revenge story.
Yeah, and just the way he treats Haru, because he's like, hey, because Haru never really turns his back on Gil. You can tell there's a little bit of uneasy tension, which makes sense. He killed his fiance. Hey, I would be a little upset about it too, but he doesn't completely blame him for it. And it doesn't turn into a story of like them fighting or turning against each other or something like that, which, because it just didn't need to happen. And I can't, because at the same time, Haru might think to himself, you know, Hero, I'm upset about it, but Gilbert's the one who had to do it. So I can't imagine it's easy for him. All right, let's go pick up some girls. Because that is what Haru was like.
Wow, okay. But no, I mean, it sounds like an interesting one. I'm interested in the God Eater series. I remember you playing it a lot when we were in college. So I always kind of wanted to play it, but I just never got around to asking to borrow the game.
Would you believe I'm still not done with it?
Really? I thought you had beaten the game like a long time ago.
I have, but there's more. But here's the thing: this is God Eater 2 Rage Burst. Like, they give you extra stuff, and the extra story stuff they give you is great, but it's so long. I'm getting frustrated with it.
Okay.
But still, Gilbert's story, it was really good.
Yeah. Well, now I'm second guessing whether I want to actually play it or not, because it sounds like it's too long.
Oh, it's worth it though. It's so good.
All right. So my next one.
Yep.
All right. Coro Sensei from Assassination Classroom. So you learn his backstory about 3/4 of the way through the whole story. So I guess about maybe the halfway point in season 2. We've kind of learned a little bit about him beforehand, but you learn his full story at this point. He was dirt poor, grew up in the slums, and pretty much learned to kill to survive. And this led him to, and he became kind of a remorseless killing machine. And he actually ended up becoming the world's greatest assassin because of this. You start to learn that, how to put it, he eventually took on a student, and after teaching the student pretty much everything he knows, besides maybe a few of his more advanced techniques, the student betrays him and gets him arrested. And with his skills, they pretty much decide that, oh, he's not gonna be able to, we can't hold him in a regular prison. So they ship him off to this science lab that has better security and pretty much to pay for his crimes, he's going to be experimented on for the rest of his life.
Oh yeah, because that always goes well.
Yeah, well, part of the experimentation is pretty much injecting him with antimatter and seeing what happens. And it starts creating these tentacle like protrusions from him out of his hair and stuff. Well, they're running a similar experiment on the moon with a rat, and it's been a year since the rat was infected with the antimatter, and it explodes. That leads to the destruction of the moon and causing it to be in a constant crescent moon shape that it is in the series. Because of this, Coro Sensei has fallen in love with the lead female scientist who's running like all of his labs and stuff for the team. She pretty much tells him what's happened and what's going to happen to him. And it means in a year, pretty much, he's going to explode himself because he won't be able to control it. And with this, he'll destroy the Earth. He's so much bigger than the rat that they had on the moon. The Earth is pretty much destroyed when he goes.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I really don't want to interrupt, but you said he falls in love with this scientist woman. Is there any connection between the two? Because based on what you're telling me, it's just, oh well, you might die, so you want to go out, or like what? Okay.
She's the first and only person to actually treat him as like a human.
Okay. All right.
Because he didn't have family and grew up in the slums, and then pretty much through that became an assassin. Everyone he's ever known has treated him as a tool or a weapon to be used.
All right. Okay.
But she, like, every time asks him how his day's been, even though she knows that the answer is that he's been trapped to a bed pretty much the entire time and stuck with needles. But back to his backstory. So pretty much because they know that what he's going to do, the kind of evil scientist that's actually in charge of everything is pretty much going to kill Koro Sensei, whatever. I can't remember what his actual name is. I just call him Koro Sensei. In order to stop him from exploding, they developed this antimatter, so I guess regular matter, to save the day. And the female scientist sacrifices herself and sets him free and ends up getting fatally injured in the process. This sends Koro Sensei on a rage. He destroys the lab, and in her dying breath, she says she's got a class of kind of the misfits at a highly ranked school that she knows that they can do better, but she hasn't been able to reach them yet, and asks that he teach them. So that's how he kind of becomes the teacher. Is he makes the threat that I destroyed the moon, I'm an alien, I will destroy the Earth in 1 year, but I'll give I want to teach this class specifically, and I'll give them 1 year to try to kill me in this process. So this class, and that sets up the premise of the story where they're given 1 year to kill their teacher before they end up pretty much causing the end of the Earth.
And they succeeded?
In a way, yes. It's
so
a
they
very
win.
sad goodbye.
So they win.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but in all seriousness, I don't have that much more to add. And it's weird because J-Stars did little to nothing to actually give him a backstory. It's just like, oh, hey, I destroyed the Earth, so Goku, try to kill me.
Okay, yeah, no, he has as I said, it's a lot of mine are, looking back on them, they're very tragic backstories.
Yeah, but the weird thing is, Goku basically says to Vegeta, even a low class Satan like me can surpass the elite if I work hard enough, and Koro Sensei encourages it. So it seems like he's a better teacher than most of those scientists, so I guess I have to give you that.
He really is because, I mean, in the story, he kind of figures out the strengths and weaknesses of all his students. So, like, I think for one, he starts using like baseball references to teach him how to do better at math questions, and talking about like using points as how he describes things for that kid. And then so he literally learns the students and teaches exactly how they need to be taught. But again, it's not practical for an actual teacher to be able to do that because they can't move at supersonic speeds.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I know a lot of my teachers can do that.
Well, then you were probably very lucky.
I was not. I majored in mass media. What do you think? The answer is no. But overall, I can co-sign. I can let Coro Sensei off with a pass.
All right, your next one.
My next one. Oh, all right. Here we go. Futaba Sakura from Persona 5.
Okay.
This poor girl. Okay, so Futaba's kind of an interesting case of we talked before about Persona 5, how all of the villains had palaces where they had to like have their hearts changed and they become less corrupted people. Futaba basically asks the same thing. But she's not inherently a bad person. And when she was young, her mom did a lot of research on the mind, like a lot of cognitive research. And her mother basically was getting a little too much information. Like she was getting more research and getting a little bit closer to the villains than they wanted. So they end up causing her to basically go out and get hit by a car, and she dies. And basically everybody turns on Futaba saying because her mom was basically brainwashed to say, "You're the reason I'm dead. You're the reason I felt so stressed. I'd rather get hit by a car than continue being your mom." So she became a shut-in because of that, being passed around between certain family members, especially her uncle, who wouldn't even let her bathe or anything like that. But she gets taken in by Sojiro, who owns the cafe that Ren sleeps at. Throughout everything, nothing Sojiro's really able to do is able to help her. But she ends up basically just growing to hate herself more and more and becoming more of a shut-in, barely even talking to basically her father figure. But it's just a really heartbreaking, sad story. And of course, overall, they save her. She becomes a much better person. But she's always telling stories about how even if deep down she knows she did not cause her mother's death. But she's always talking about how stories of, oh, my mom, she was busy and we didn't always get to spend time together, but she did still care about me, and she always promised to go do this mother-daughter dance with me, do this with me. And we just learned so much more about her story and just how every time we learn something, we feel a little sadder each time. But she finds a way to recover from it and just become better. I loved Futaba's story.
Yeah, and I'm assuming eventually it is, based on what you said, it is learned that her mother was brainwashed at some point, and that's
Basically.
Okay. So she has some closure in the fact that to learn that her mother didn't actually hate her or was stressed out by her.
Yeah, basically that.
Well, that's nice. That part, it sounds really actually cathartic.
Yeah, not to mention I feel like even with her, she's still Futaba. She's still portrayed as kind of odd. Doesn't always pick up on stuff she should. But she's becoming a better person, but not necessarily a different person. Like you can see a lot of her mom in her, which is exactly what Sojiro tells you before he tells the main character, please don't date her, because I don't know how to feel about you being my son-in-law. And I'm just like, you're too late on that. But like I said, both the game and the anime do a really good job with her.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Was she one of the add-on characters for Golden? Or not Golden,
for Royal?
Yeah.
No, she's part of the base game.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I don't think I ever got that far in the game, so I didn't.
No, I think you might like her as a character, but I'm not gonna. I don't want to talk about which Persona girl is best, because then the whole internet just gets crazy with stuff like that.
Oh no, I know that. I know.
Yeah, But, Futaba, honorable mentions time?
All right, honorable mentions time.
Let's do it.
So my first one is Tamara Shigaraki from My Hero Academia. This is the main antagonist. So pretty much we learned that All Might's mentor and the previous holder for One for All, she had her identity kind of revealed, and in order to protect her son, she put him up for adoption under a different name, so that literally to protect him from All for One and to save his life. But he was old enough to have memories of her and being happy, and this led him to having a kind of, he hates heroes. He thinks that the profession, they do it for the spotlight, and family just gets in the way, is kind of his view of it. And because he views it as he was given up rather than having to deal with him and try to be a hero. This leads him to being kind of abusive to his kid's son, Tamara, because Tamara keeps saying, I want to be a hero. Well, he gets hit a couple times by his dad in the series, and when we learn his backstory, it's right about that age where kids are supposed to start manifesting their powers. His power is literally called decay. He rots things away, and he's sitting in his backyard, and his powers finally activate. Well, and it's a very emotionally charged moment, and kind of his best friend, his own pet, his dog, disintegrates in his arms.
Good God.
Yeah, so he's then starts panicking. His sister hears him and comes outside.
Oh God.
And sees what's left of the dog and panics and tries to run away. He panics and is trying to, and I mean, you can see it on his face that he has no idea what's going on. He actually thinks that a villain is attacking their house. He doesn't even know it's his own power. And at this point, his power activates just by with touch, and he's trying to stop her to get her to help him because it's his older sister, and touches her elbow and she falls apart. The mother comes out, freaks out, kills her. Then the dad shows up and is livid and angry about everything. And this kind of triggers him as a fight or flight instinct kind of kicks in. And he jumps on his dad. And pretty much you see the full extent of what his powers are actually capable of for the first time, as he destroys his dad, the yard, and the house all at once. And you see him running away, screaming that there's a villain attacking. And the next time you kind of see him, it's been a few months, and he's anorexically skinny, nothing but skin and bones. He's been living on the street. If I remember correctly, there's a couple scenes of him trying to take food and getting punched and beat up, but his powers don't activate. So he's not really in control. He just doesn't understand his powers. And that's when you see All for One take him in and start kind of his corruption more in depth at this point. So it's a very dark story of his power, and then having that abusive relationship that's already kind of started the corruption, and then having the bad mentor lead him down the road that they lead him down at this point.
Good Lord.
This isn't a spoiler because as far as my understanding, nothing's been proven, but there's a theory that his powers actually aren't his own because none of his family have similar abilities. So the theory is that he has just kind of he was given a power by All for One to push him down this path. So it's kind of that's, as I said, that's just a theory where I don't think anything's been shown to say that or anything.
With backstories like this, it really reminds me of a certain character in Cobra Kai who I feel like in the second if you ever start watching the show, you'll be like, oh, that's what he was talking about. But yeah, like I said, I don't really have any answers to that, but it sounds pretty horrible.
Yeah, it's probably season 4 was not animated great because they spent a lot of money on the movie that was coming out at the exact same time. And this is probably one of the better animated scenes because it's especially, and that's kind of scary because they shortened several fights from other parts of the story at this point. But yeah, it's very kind of dark at this point in the story.
And I guess I can co-sign. Good lord. Good lord. You know, I was figuring with all of these, there's some form of a happy ending, but you're just like, no, no.
We don't know the end of his story yet because it hasn't happened. It's not even done in the manga. So
not unless I start writing it. But I guess I should just move on to my next one.
Go right ahead.
All right. From Pokemon, this is going to be a little bit of a weird one. Tyson's Meowth.
Okay.
Do you remember Tyson?
Yeah, he was in. It's the Sinnoh League, right? Or
The Hoenn League.
Hoenn League. Okay,
I don't think Tobias had a backstory in the Sinnoh League, but I could be wrong on that. But anyways, sorry, go ahead.
Just remember, his Meowth is the one that wears like boots or something, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, so Tyson himself was not the most. I'm not going to say he was a bad character, but he didn't get the most to work with compared to other characters. But his Meowth was kind of interesting. Like Team Rocket's Meowth, it basically lost a fight to a Persian and was ousted from the group for being weak. Tyson found it and took it in, and because of that, it grew to have a huge disdain against other Persian, which is why it grew to be very serious. It got to the point where Tyson openly said, oh, it's strong enough to evolve, but why would it evolve into something it hates? So it basically chooses not to, which, I'm going to be honest, I prefer that motive for I'm not going to evolve yet over others like Pikachu and Piplup, where it's just like, oh, I just like it. Like, no, there's an actual reason here, and it kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like the story of it kind of, because of that, it grew kind of hateful and serious, even though it demonstrated tremendous loyalty to Tyson, even if at times it couldn't control itself, because there was this, I want to say the girl looked like about 8 years old, not sure how she got so far in the tournament, but okay, who was about 8 years old, and her Persian got knocked out, my Meowth. But instead of just returning and just being done or something like that, Tyson's Meowth charges towards her while it's unconscious, and Tyson has to stop it and return it. Like, no, no, no. Because there's a good to fair chance if he didn't do anything, let's just say, it would not have been a happy episode.
Yeah, I don't remember this battle because this was the stereotypical last minute entry add-on rival for
which
Ash
I don't
to be for.
Which I don't like, which is why it's an honorable mention. But like I said, I at least felt like Tyson and his Pokemon had a story going into it rather than just, hey, I have a Darkrai, so stop me.
Exactly. I remember the Meowth. I remember it having a tragic backstory. I thought it had something to do with its paws getting injured as well.
Yeah, that too. So the boots helped, and then it's just like, well, I'm not taking these off now because I look fabulous.
Which again started all sorts of theories of what does that mean we'll get to put outfits on Pokemon, and still haven't been able to do that more than outfit Pikachu.
Yeah, but I would like to dress up certain Pokemon, but overall, I just felt like Tyson's and his Meowth story was just, it's simple. Simple, it makes sense. There's no cathartic, like, oh my god, I realized I was in the wrong thing. He still has an edge, but it's not like, as long as Tyson's around, it won't be too much of a problem.
Yeah, and it's so yeah, I'll co-sign onto this one. It seems like it's an interesting story. As I said, I know I've seen it because I've watched all of Diamond and Pearl.
Why do you keep saying Diamond and Pearl? Why do you keep saying Diamond and Pearl?
because for some reason I keep thinking this one's Diamond and Pearl and not Hoenn for some reason, because I thought he was introduced, but no, you're right. I'm off on which series it is.
We watched too much Pokemon at this rate.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just finished Black and White all the way through for the first time, so.
Yeah, and we still have to talk about Journeys at some point.
Yeah, because we've had the latest part out for a while. We'll eventually get around to it.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do. We'll finish this series and then decide if we're going to continue whatever the next series is.
Fine. Tyson's me out.
All right, my next one.
Go for it.
All right, it's Lichtbach from Plunderer.
Okay.
So this is kind of I don't want to say main character. It's the main hero of the series. He's revealed in the first episode as he's supposed to be one of the strongest people in the world. He's strong enough to survive because he has a negative count, which is supposed to mean that he gets pulled to the rest of the world and out of this kind of Eden-like place. But it's revealed that his personality, which is he's very comedic and kind of that pervy best friend almost style, but yet he's the main hero. He never does anything necessarily that bad by comparison to some others. But you actually learn when the main character, the girl from the series, travels back in time with some of the other characters, you learn that he's always been kind of this happy-go-lucky kid. But there's this kind of, how to put it, it was a kind of projected resource war. The world was pretty much ending. There was not enough resources to go around anymore. He's one of the only ways to get enough food is to join the army. And in order to do that, you have to go to like these special schools. Licht is only enrolling because his brother is enrolling. I think it's his brother. It's either his brother or his best friend. It's been a while since I saw the series. But despite his happy-go-lucky, nonchalant attitude about everything, he's like the best soldier. He's able to sync the best with the powers and abilities. So they start pretty much turning him into a super soldier. And you learn he went through this very dark time where he was pretty much a killing machine. Because he was the only super soldier at first, he pretty much went in, wiped out entire battalions, and was a remorseless killing machine. He even, there's this, some scenes where he supposedly killed kids and stuff, where, because it's the rule, like the orders he was given was wipe out this area. We don't have the resources to keep feeding all these excess people and soldiers for this other army. So wipe out the army, wipe out the people, and we'll take the resources for ourselves, was kind of the whole mentality. So the whole fact is that he had to pretty much relearn to be a person, not just a killing machine. And you learn that he kind of did this through his friends and all that. So it's a really tragic but a happy backstory that he does become a person, like an actual person versus the killing machine again.
Good God. I guess I co-sign, but now I just feel bummed out.
Yeah, Plunderer is a good series, but I don't think it'll ever actually finish because I know it didn't do as well as they tried to make it look like it was going to be the next big anime, and they never actually got around to doing a season 2 yet. And
it seems to happen more and more nowadays.
Yeah, every time they say something's going to be the next big anime, it never seems to last long enough.
Yeah, or the fans just turn on it.
But then you get other like stylized shows that are like Demon Slayer that end up lasting a lot longer than you would actually originally expect.
Yeah, I feel like when you first started watching My Hero, nobody was talking about it.
I started watching, I think, before season 1 was finished, which is shocking because I think I had to wait the last week when for the final episode. So that was kind of weird. I don't know how I found it. I just sort of found it one day.
Yeah, and it kind of happened with Black Clover too, and I guess to an extent Fairy Tail, but those are other points for another day.
Fairy Tail was after its first hiatus, so I didn't start. I watched it later than a lot of people who started that one, but Black Clover, we both started when it first came out, and you just continued more than I did.
Yep, but I can go co-sign on to that.
All right, your next one?
From Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Axel Brody.
Okay.
Axel, I'm gonna be honest. When I first when I was first watching GX, I didn't really care for Axel. I'm not really sure what it was, but for some reason he didn't engage me. But after rewatching season 3 multiple times, sadly, you kind of learn a lot about the guy. Like, he's this tough, no-nonsense, military-style person. And we learned very early on it's because his dad was kind of the same way. Like, his dad was like, always complete a mission. And you have to be tough. You have to basically do all of this stuff to be a man. And then ultimately we learned later down the line that another reason why he listens to his dad over his mom was because there was a car crash with him and his parents in it, and a spirit showed up and said, you can only save one of these people. He ended up picking his dad, and his mom's not around anymore. Not a good thing for a kid to go through. But overall, he learns through all of these military tactics, guerrilla warfare, all this other sorts of stuff. And it's implied that he also ends up losing his dad at some point, and he gets taken in by this person named Professor Viper at their academy. And Professor Viper's a pretty shady person. So you'd think Axel would be able to see right away, okay, this guy's a problem, maybe I should take him out. But his dad was always telling him, hey, don't be, like, you have to complete a mission to its fullest. You can't show weakness. Mm-hmm. It's also kind of, I don't remember specifically what happened, but Professor Viper at one point said, you need to keep in line, otherwise remember what happened to your dad. So probably safe to say Professor Viper may have had something to do with that. But overall, like, he meets Jaden and everybody else. He learns to loosen up. He becomes best friends with Jim Crocodile Cook, another amazing character. But Axel, he just went through a lot, and he ended up being one of the biggest components of Season 3. And I think his backstory in particular, when you finally really give it a chance, it's actually a thoroughly compelling one.
Yeah, as I said, I've only seen up to a certain point in Season 2, but I've seen scenes from Season 3, and what I know of Axel is I've seen his very serious side. So hearing his backstory, it almost seems kind of like an opposite of the Titanium Ranger from Lightspeed Rescue kind of situation. You can only save one. So where instead of the dad, it's the son, how you depict.
Yeah, and it's safe to say it didn't work out for Axel. It worked out for Ryan, for the Titanium Ranger in that season, but it didn't really work out for Axel.
Yeah, as I said, I'll co-sign onto this for that. Yeah, it sounds like interesting. I may have to go back and finish up GX now. Yeah. At least the English dub of it.
Yeah. He's also super jacked, and all he does is work out and eat junk food and drink soda. So, how is that fair?
I don't know. I wish I could do that, but I don't usually work out well enough.
Yeah, I just started a new one. Also, he's black, so that helps for me.
All right. So my next one?
Go for it.
So this one has kind of a similar backstory to another one, which is why it's an honorable mention. There hasn't been an emotional payoff yet for how the story ends, so I put him as an honorable mention, and that's Luke Tuatha from an assassin reincarnated as a aristocrat or something along those lines. This was actually a really enjoyable show. So pretty much the entire first episode is the backstory. The kid is reincarnated. Listen, in our world, this man is the world's greatest assassin, but he's starting to get up there in age, and this is kind of supposed to be his final big mission, and he completes it. He kills his target, and things starts to seem to be going wrong. It's the little things like the enemy somehow knows kind of where they're at and sends out a drone, which they manage to escape and bring down. Then they have other issues like the they just seem to be followed, but he, as the world's greatest assassin, he's got the idea that he'll be either he's either going to start assigning missions to other people, or he's going to be training the next generation of assassins. And when he's supposed to be on his way to where he's to like the headquarters to start this job, the commercial jet that he's on gets shot down with, so he's on there with all these extra people, and he literally gets killed by the assassin team that he works for, and that leads to his reincarnation as a noble in another world. And he's reincarnated as the because he's a, how to put it, a good candidate to try to kill the hero of the world after he saves the world, because the hero's mindset is supposedly it will change the world and lead to the end of the world after he saves it. So that's kind of his whole backstory.
And you said this hasn't had a proper conclusion yet?
No, so he, at the end of season 1, he's kind of gathered his team of assassins that work with him, but he hasn't killed the hero yet, and he hasn't, what else? And he hasn't even figured out who the hero is, so he doesn't know who he needs to kill. It's one of those that we don't know if it's going to get a second season yet. It was really popular because it was in winter season earlier this year.
So maybe it'll come back.
Yeah, it's still too kind of early to tell if it's going to come back or not.
Yeah, but I guess I can co-sign onto that. Yeah, that. It sounds like a pretty interesting show.
Yep, I think it's one of those that you might even like. For it is what's that term called?
Isekai?
Yeah, but it's not necessarily the stereotypical one, so you might enjoy this one.
Yeah, there's a couple of isekai that I want to give a chance, but there's also a couple that I think to myself, I don't think I ever want to watch this show.
All right, so your next one.
All right, my last honorable mention. Okay, so I've talked before, Merrick Ishtar is not my favorite, which is why he's also not on this list. But there's a member of his family that I think deserves some love for best backstory. Ishizu Ishtar.
Okay.
Okay, so Ishizu herself is kind of odd. Her Millennium Eye can help see the future, despite the fact there seem to be so many holes that they poke into that. But regardless, she grows up with Merrick and Odeon, and she basically watches her dad abuse the rest of his family, and then her mom dies during childbirth with Merrick. She sneaks out Merrick to basically the surface when they're guarding the tombs because Merrick's never seen the world. Now, on the one hand, I kind of put this as an honorable mention because all of this is kind of her own fault. Merrick killing their dad, going crazy, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. But I think I just like how, I don't know, it feels like to an extent she kind of knows what she did, and she finds ways of putting pressure on herself. Oh, and I don't know, I just felt like she did I liked the fact that she knew, I know he's going after the Pharaoh, but maybe the Pharaoh can help save this, which is why she gives not Joey, why she wants to give people the God cards and hey, get this tournament set up, because if you set up a tournament, they'll show up. Sure, why not? It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Weirder stuff has happened. But I just think Shizu was a pretty cool character in that regard with her backstory. The only thing I don't like is how kind of useless she felt towards the end, because she didn't do a whole lot more after that.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Wasn't she another one that was knocked out after her loss?
Pretty much. She lost to Kaiba because Merrick showed some vision of Kaiba. Don't use your God card. Use your blue eyes or something like that. I don't know. It was weird. A lot of people say she should have beaten Kaiba, and I don't know about that, but like something more, something else.
Yeah, it almost feels she was built up as this mysterious person, and then they make her a recurring character, and then she's not really used after that. She has what, one successful battle maybe in the entire series.
I don't even know if she has that now that I think about it.
So yeah, I can understand that. She's not necessarily trying to correct a mistake, but trying to save her family is her mentality. She doesn't want to kill Merrick. She doesn't want to even let him betray or turn into the Yami Merrick or whatever he is, and she wants to save him, but she knows that her main goal needs to be to save the world.
Yeah, it also is they kind of address it in Duel Links too, because in her childhood, it's kind of revealed she wasn't really allowed to have a lot of fun or do a lot of things. So whenever those weird events like, hey guys, solve this duel puzzle, she's always one of the people who's like, oh, I never got to do these a lot. Maybe Odeon and I could do them together. Like, it's a tiny little thing, but you gotta take what you can get with some characters.
Exactly. And I'm trying to think, I mean, does she even show up with Merrick in the final season?
I believe so, yeah. I believe so, yes.
But it's not even, because Merrick doesn't play a big role in the final season anyway. He's just there for remember us? We were important part 3 seasons ago.
Yeah. But overall, Ishizu, she had a pretty cool, interesting story. Just not a very good payoff.
Okay, yeah, I'll co-sign on to her. All right, so my final one. This isn't last honorable mention. This is the last one for me. So this one's kind of 2 people in one because their backstories are intertwined, and that's Rio Stardy and Seiya Ryujin from Cautious Hero. I would say the full name, but it's another long isekai kind of thing.
Of course, it's an isekai.
So in this series, Rio Stardy is a goddess who summons heroes to the god realm to give them kind of instructions on something to because they have to save a specific world from demon attack. And there's hundreds and hundreds of worlds, and the gods are all tasked with taking turns saving different worlds. And there's different classifications and levels of each world based on which demons are attacking the world. And Rio Stardy is a new goddess pretty much at this point, and this is her first opportunity to save one. So she summons her hero, which is Ryujin, and for some reason he doesn't want to go into the world right away to start leveling up and to save it. He wants to stay in the god realm where time moves much more slowly than outside, so he can train there a lot longer and get stronger. And it's sort of revealed towards the beginning that there's a reason for his caution. But when you really start learning his backstory is kind of the last few episodes when one of Rio Stardy's goddess friends tells her, listen, you actually have a connection to Ryujin from before you were a goddess. You were a healer in one of these worlds that was being attacked. He was summoned as the hero to save your world then. You fell in love. He was a cocky guy and ended up, y'all went on a mission to fight the final boss and y'all lost. You were killed and you were his main healer. This led him to going on a rampage, and while he didn't kill demon, he lost control and got pretty much destroyed that way. And it's revealed that that changed his personality, because the heroes won't die, technically. They get pulled out at the last second, aren't allowed to go back to the world. Their minds are erased and they're sent back to their original lives without any time having passed. So he's literally just sent back home, but in his subconscious, he's kind of remembering he failed to save this girl, but she never gave up on him, even in her dying moments. So that's kind of how she gets reincarnated as a god. He, and that leads her to be summoning him. And it's kind of a very tragic, sad backstory, the star-crossed lovers kind of story. And I almost forgot about it until recently. And I had to talk about it because it's actually a really nice story, because they end up rediscovering each other and learning about each other throughout the series again. And the last few episodes, especially, when they realized that they actually knew each other beforehand.
That seems to be a trope that you and I both enjoy. The characters who kind of have met up at one point before in their lives, but then get separated, but then get reunited somehow, but never knew the whole time. I feel like we brought it up a couple of times.
Yeah, this one does it, as I said, really well, because they give reasons why they don't remember each other. And she doesn't look necessarily like her old self, but she is still the same person and deep down. And that's kind of where the connection comes back. And in the end, they end up saving the world that they've been assigned to save and all that. So it's just a nice overall story.
Yeah, and I can co-sign on to that. Sounds like a good one.
All right. And your last one?
All right, my last one for best backstory in anime, Katsura Kotaro from Gintama.
Okay.
Okay, do you remember Katsura just off the top of your head, or Zura as people call him?
I'm trying to remember which one that is. Is that the one with is that like the first kind of major rival, or am I thinking of someone?
You're kind of there. Katsura's the guy with the very serious looking person with the long hair and the giant duck walking around with him.
That was who I thought it was, so.
Very good. But anyways, Katsura at first glance is kind of weird, but we learned his backstory is he grew up alongside Gintoki, Sakamoto, and Shinsuke, as they were all basically orphans throughout the war. But not Sakamoto. Katsura basically grew up with only his grandmother, and his grandmother basically taught him throughout the war kind of only matters. Your ideals and everything, they kind of only matter if you live. Which sounds pessimistic, but at the same time, she's not completely wrong in some aspects. But it teaches him very early on that there are battles that if you're losing a battle, it's okay to run away. It makes more sense to keep your forces strong and alive rather than to stick around and then just have everybody end up being killed in the first place. But alongside Gintoki and everybody else, he basically forms friendships with them, has funny moments with them. But as I've talked about before, or with Shinsuke, they all have to basically witness Gintoki kill their own teacher to save their lives. And because of that, he grows very hateful throughout the world. But within the first few episodes of the series, when he's reintroduced, he learns from Gintoki and everybody else, look, Gintoki's the one who had to kill our master. He should be the most upset over all of us, yet he'll still put his life on the line to protect the people he cares about, even if he doesn't even know them. So it kind of inspires Katsura to be more... Because at this point, the aliens have already taken over, and there's not much they can do about it. But he basically becomes a terrorist throughout the world, but rather than doing it to kill everybody and cause destruction, he's basically just trying to cause rebellion, making him the most likable terrorist in anime. And I can't really believe I just said that either.
Yeah, I remember because when you were first watching the series again, this was, God, 7 years ago almost.
Jesus.
Yeah, right about. It would have been the fall of because I think you started halfway through our first semester,
something like that,
which would have been 2015. So, um, yeah, and he was the big rival at this point at the first part of the series, from what I remember, because you were interested in his story. It seemed like the most at that point.
Yeah, and with how serious he looks, he's so stupid. He's so he can wear any disguise on the planet, and if you call, like, he could dress up as Santa Claus, and if you call him Santa Claus, he'll be like, "I'm not Santa Claus, I'm Katsura," just completely blowing his cover.
Yeah, and I remember his duck companion. That was always like, just looking up and seeing that on the screen. It's like, wait, what? What is this show?
Yeah, I can't. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but Elizabeth's story. You could get incredibly used to Gintama and its style, and you'll still be like, what? But no, I'm pausing the episode. I'm done for the day.
Yeah, I remember at least one episode where, and I don't know if it was with him in it, but I do remember you pausing an episode or two and just getting up silently and walking out of the room.
I couldn't process whatever was going on. But like that's the thing about Katsura. Like, he still finds ways to make himself and other people laugh, despite all he's been through. And he's, like I said, he's a terrorist, but he's still finding ways of helping people and bringing peace to the world, while calling out somebody in the show for watching anime. I got nothing.
Oh gosh. So yeah, I mean, he seemed like one of the more interesting characters, especially early on. So I would have to co-sign on to him for this.
Yeah, he's basically the Jabari of Gintama.
Oh god, that is interesting.
Yeah, but his backstory in particular, just with everything going on in the war, and especially the philosophy of it's okay to run away, because there's so many characters who teach you, oh, I'm never going to run away again, I'm going to keep fighting till the end, while Katsura's kind of like, no, we need to run. We can live to fight another day, rather than just dying right now.
Yeah, that is a good philosophy, I think, to have, is that you can lose a battle but not necessarily lose the war and still be pretty much fight with honor.
Exactly.
And actually, I would view that as more honorable than saying, well, we lost today, we're going to lose tomorrow, so I might as well die in battle today.
Exactly.
So, yeah, as I said, I'll co-sign onto that.
Alright, are we ready to close out?
I believe so.
Alright, ladies, gentlemen, and others, what are your favorite backstories in anime? I know we brought up a lot of tragic ones, but are there any funny backstories that you like? Hey, or just any type of backstory in particular that you find compelling that shapes a character or characters?
Yeah, I mean, especially tell us some funny ones, because, I mean, looking back on my list, I thought I had one that was funny, but I really didn't, so...
I thought about saying Harley's backstory from Pokemon, but I've talked about Harley enough, so I figured, let's mix it up.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do another video. We'll have to look up some funnier backstories and try to remember them. But
yeah, or maybe just funny character, just anything. But be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, buy the merch. Hit us up on Cameo. Well, we don't have a Cameo, so that wouldn't really work. But regardless, just anything. More stuff is coming soon, and we will see you guys next time. This has been Alex.
And Richard.
And you have been listening to the Anime Egotists. Good night. Peace easy.